Welcome. Today we have a very special guest, Cooley, joining us again to talk about dietary education. Cooley is a registered dietitian. She has been with Margaret Mary Hospital for 32 years and has been teaching dietary education for a majority of that time. So Kathy has tons of wonderful knowledge to share with us today. So thank you, Kathy, for joining us.
I'm delighted to be here again, Amy. Thanks.
So why is now a good time to start talking about diet and nutrition?
Well, because it's kind of what I like to call the diet season, the season of dieting. This is the time when people start to think, oh my gosh, New Year's resolutions, I've been wanting to do this all along. And we used to be able to get together with our family and a lot of discussion would come up about what we are eating and why we're eating it. And so it just seems like in January, that's when our phones ring. Dietitians are more popular in January than they are in November and December. And so I just thought, since I have some kind of viewpoints, and I know you do too, about a good approach to that, I thought it would be a good time to talk before people start making their big plans.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thanks for that. And thanks for joining us. So what advice do you have for somebody who's interested in making a change, who's ready to do something a little different in the new year?
So I first have some kind of core beliefs that guide my thinking. And as I tell everybody whenever I do any talk, there's a couple caveats to that. One is, this is based on my experience, my reading, my, world viewpoint, and that's different than other health professionals. And you could talk to somebody across the hall in my same position who might have a little different perspective. So you take whatever I say and kind of filter it through your brain and see what comes out and see what works for you. But that being said, I have worked with a lot of people and I have seen folks succeed and I've seen folks get frustrated. And the bottom line, why I want to talk about it and asked you if this could be our topic, is because I really think I'm beginning to believe that the wrong decision could actually not be good for you. So many people thought, well, so if I do the wrong diet, I lose weight and then I gain it back, doesn't make any difference. But there could be some long-lasting health effects from some diets that are out there, and I just would love for people to make good decisions about what they're doing. So I'm asking people to kind of pause, reflect, learn, and have an intentional approach. And I think that then it can be more sustainable and long-term than maybe the typical diet.
Yeah, so I like that, an intentional approach. So do you see any specific keys or specific points that help people starting be successful?
I do. I think that first you have to consider what I like to call a holistic approach to lifestyle change, because that's what we're asking people to do, is to change their lifestyle. And that's not easy to do. And, our health is based, they even have a wellness wheel that has 8 different components on it. So there's, spiritual, financial, physical, emotional, I can't remember them all, but there's other parts of our health besides just our weight. And if we focus solely on that, sometimes we can risk the other pieces of that wheel. So we end up with a very unbalanced wheel that kind of clunks along instead of a smooth ride. So when we put too much emphasis on one part of our health, which might be a really strict diet, like, okay, I have got to lose this weight, and the mentality that then that's going to fix all the other spokes on that wheel, I think that's when people end up being in what I call kind of the yo-yo dieting and the frustrating part of, I know what to do, I just can't make myself do it, which is what we hear from so many people. So I challenge everybody and say, maybe you don't know what to do. Maybe you think you do, but maybe for you, it's different. And you need to look at things a little bit different. We certainly aren't going to solve all those questions today in this 20 minutes. But today I just want to really raise awareness that you need to stop and ponder, and just what's best for somebody else might not be best for you. So you asked for keys for success. So the first key to success, I think, for anybody is an intentional approach, that they've looked at their total wellness and have identified that it's time to do this and that they're in a position to do it. If you're in a super stressful job, if your finances are really difficult right now, if there's some other piece of your life that's challenging, and to throw a diet change on top of that might not be the right time, and you just could get frustrated. But doing little bits and pieces of the whole wheel might help you just get that balance that I think we need. And so that's my biggest challenge, is it's not all about the calories and the exercise. So many diets, any of the, I think it's $1 billion industry. I don't know of any diet books, but so much focus is on how many calories you eat, how many carbs you eat, how much fat you eat, how much you exercise, kind of that calories in, calories out. And I think the shift in the dietitian world, and there's plenty of books out there about this, but the shift in the dietitian world, if there's that stress and hormones and sleep can all play a role just as important as the calories and the exercise, calories in, calorie out. So that's my challenge, is to make it a holistic approach to weight loss.
Yeah, we see that a lot, right? Somebody who really isn't eating a ton of calories and seems to be maybe expending more calories than they're eating, and yet they're not losing weight, right? I'm sure you see that. I see that
all the time.
And I think that's when the light comes on that there's something else going on. Maybe they're not sleeping, maybe they're stressed out, maybe there's a stressful relationship, or it's not as easy as we used to think. Calories in just need to be less than calories out and you'll lose weight, but that doesn't always play out in the real world, does it?
Exactly. And not only that, but when we restrict calories, we can be disrupting our normal hormonal balances in our body that suppress appetite and do the things we want to happen. So I can't tell you how many people I've worked with, a lot, that I say eat more and they lose weight. And it's because that their body needs that for the proper balance. We just don't respect the intricacies of what's happening inside of us on a day-to-day basis. And so a different approach is to think more of a metabolic, or what I call a systems approach. So take care of your brain, take care of your gut, take care of your heart, take care of our organs and our systems, and instead of focusing on the calories, and then your body will be in balance, and then it'll be where it's supposed to be. So I know it's easier said than done, but that's such an important message that I want people to understand.
And maybe you could give some examples of some successful patients you've worked with that had that issue, where it felt like doing the things that they felt were right wasn't working for them, and maybe you offering some advice, such as maybe eating a little bit more, or eating more fruits and vegetables, or whatever advice you may have given to kind of change their perspective.
Right. So many people, get out their calorie counter app, or, whatever, and say, okay, I need to eat under 1,000 calories a day, and I need to exercise at least 500 calories a day or something. And so their calorie balance is like negative. And so as soon as I can encourage them and challenge them, say, okay, just for 2 weeks. And sometimes it's really hard for people to do, because they've kind of also messed up their hunger cues, so they don't feel hungry. But when I encourage them to add 500 calories and decrease their exercise, I guess I can think of a lady, right? One lady I have in my mind in particular. It's happened so many times I can't think of individual people, but one lady I particularly have in my mind just was in shock when she came in, because we do a class and they come in every week and weigh, and she said, oh my gosh, I lost weight and I ate more and I feel better. I feel stronger. I want to move. I want to do things. I want to participate. I have less stress. And so all those things combined. And so she could find kind of that happy balance where she did that. Then also certainly across the board, I can't even think of an individual case necessarily, but people who changed the quality of their diet. So not just changing the quantity, but also the quality of their food can make also a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to put a little caveat with that. I have my niece, Ivy Glaser, not related to you, Amy, but she's this adorable, wonderful, young professional woman who's really taken a liking to health and wellness and the right approach. And, you know, she keeps reminding me very well that we also eat for our soul and because food means a lot to us. So when you have somebody who tells you never eat that again or don't ever do that, then that's a stress and that's not nurturing who we are. So I think that in honor of Ivy, I just want to say that we also eat for more than just the quality of the food, and not to get too hung up on that, and because that can cause a whole nother set of problems. So I guess, you know, her message and my message too is to start with self-love and start with self-compassion and not knocking ourselves down that, oh my gosh, I'm this, I'm that, I can't believe I did that. And not shaming yourself, but treating yourself like your best friend and encouraging and being a coach.
Yeah.
To keep going.
I think that's great advice. I think a lot of times, you know, to the first part of what you mentioned was sometimes people get very stuck on counting calories, and we don't honestly know, you know, how many calories an individual person needs or how many they're expending throughout a day based on all the things they're doing. You know, we can guess how many calories the average person expends doing this activity, but I think that the key is tuning into yourself and really learning those hunger signals and those fatigue signals and those energy signals, so that you know, when you have energy, you can expend it. And when you feel tired, you can rest. And when you feel hungry, you can eat. And when you feel full, you know, you stop eating. But we've learned to kind of tune those out. So I think that, yeah, I think that's huge what you said. And then also the feeding your soul. You know, food is definitely therapeutic to a lot of people. And sometimes people take that too far, right? So like if a bite of ice cream makes you feel happy, then why not eat the whole pint? But it doesn't work that way, right? You don't get increasing happiness from eating more and more of it. But I do the same thing. I tell my patients not to restrict or not thinking about restricting, because as soon as you say, don't think about the white elephant, then that's what you think about, right? So don't eat chocolate, then that's all you want. So yeah, I like the idea of not restricting and allowing yourself to occasionally have those things that you love, because our bodies are pretty amazing at detoxifying. And so we can take a little bit of insult without, take it in stride, and our body heals, well. So yeah, those are both great pieces of advice. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
What are some other, sometimes you hear people say, I know what I'm supposed to do, I just can't do it. And so, sometimes I'll take a pause there and we'll talk about, so like you said, maybe you don't know exactly what you're supposed to do, but also maybe there's a reason you can't or don't want to do it, right? There's some underlying psychological reason, like you feel like you're depriving yourself. I had one patient who actually was restricted food as a child. She had abusive parents. And so for her, the worst possible thing would be to tell her to restrict her food, right? So everybody is different, and getting to that balance of kind of tuning back into your body is sometimes quite a challenge. It's not just that you can't, it's just going to take a lot of layers and steps to get there.
And I think that's a really interesting point. And I do find that patients and people, I shouldn't say patients, I say people that I work with fit kind of into two buckets. And one bucket are folks who've been at this for their whole life. They'll say, I've been struggling with my weight since whatever. I haven't felt good about my food choices for a long time. I've tried this, I've tried that, nothing seems to work. That's the one bucket. And then the other bucket are people who just have never even thought about it before. They've lived their life and they've had other priorities, and they've just never even thought about what they ate. It's never been an issue in their life, which of course is impossible for me to believe, but that happens. I mean, there are people that's not been a priority. And I find that those folks are kind of like open books. They are ready to go. Change is not hard. It hasn't been an issue for them. The folks who it has been, those are the people that I think have to really step back and think about what's going on. And maybe, I'm sure you've suggested this too, or work with folks that, like you said, there might be some therapy that's needed, before you can move on to this next step because of whatever background you might have. Again, it's all individualized, and that's why I think it's so important before people just start on a diet to pause and kind of think about where they're at. You asked what to say to people when they kind of say, I know what to do. And we're kind of talking about habits here and how do you change a habit. So I do have a book that I really like. It's called The Power of Habit did I share this the last time I talked?
No, you did not.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's by Charles Duhigg, and he actually has a website, I think, but it's a great book. And if folks are really want to kind of dig into kind of brain, mental, how do you really make change? He has some great stories of that. So I just want to share that book for that. And then the other thing I love that I kind of dug out of my files, because I thought, what are my key topics that I really want to share when I get to talk to Amy? And I have this article, I think it's from like 2000, 2003. It was an adventure magazine. And it was called The 12 Habits of Highly Successful Survivors. And if you can see this is a copy from a magazine from 2003 that's still in my files. But what I love about this article is the article is about people who are in crisis situations, like their airplane crashed on top of a mountain and they have high-heeled shoes and a dress on, and they survive. Or the guy whose arm, they talk about, I can't remember his name, but the guy whose arm was caught in the rock and he had to cut his arm off to survive. So he found these, found these stories, adventure stories of people that, survived, and he listed what their habits were. So the habits of these survivors, I'm going to tell you because they're so fun to hear. But I think they completely go along with anybody who wants to do behavior, because we all need to be survivors. We don't want to be victims, because we can feel that way sometimes. We can feel, just things aren't going our way and things are tough, and we can start, and we all have been there. You can start to feel, oh my gosh, there's no way out. But when you read these stories, you're like, oh, well, they did it. I should be able to do it. So these are the concepts. You want to hear them? And we'll kind of maybe end on this. So the first one is perceive and believe. So you got to believe that you're going to be okay. Stay calm. Think, analyze, and plan. And that's maybe what we've been talking about just now. Think about where you're at, analyze what's best for you, and make a plan. I love this one. Enjoy the journey. So it's a journey. So make it fun. This is not no one's forcing you to do this. This is your own decisions. These are your own intentions, and you're moving forward. See the beauty. So look around, stop, take a deep breath, and say, you know what? Boy, that salad looks amazing. It's beautiful. Or that chocolate cake looks great, but I don't need that big of a piece because I'm going to enjoy it so much. Surrender. So surrender, they said, meant that the folks who survived recognized they may not make it. Recognize it might not work, but they certainly were going to put all that they could into making it happen. I'm not finished yet. Take action. So this is the time that the guy with the arm in the rock had to say, okay, I've remained calm. I've thought everything through. I'm going to have to, if I want to live, I'm going to have to figure out a way to survive taking my arm off. Celebrate your successes. So small steps. So, when the lady figured out who was trapped on top of a mountaintop with high heels and a dress, and she figured out how to make shoes out of grass or something, she celebrated small successes because she knew that would help. Be a rescuer, never a victim. Believe you will succeed. Do whatever is necessary and never give up. So I would just like to say that I think there's lots of resources in our community. I think we have some wonderful folks in Southeastern Indiana here to help everybody to work together. So find a team, make it fun, and don't, be careful. I just really want to emphasize that, we need to take care of our systems, our liver, our lungs, and food can do that. It's a great job for that. So I have 2 more things to say, unless you have something else to add to that part.
Well, I would just comment that, those are all great, survival tips. And I love the idea of, you brought up setting an intention, because I think that's super important. A lot of times people think, okay, I just want to lose weight, but why do you want to lose weight? What is your actual goal behind that? And those survivors had a very clear intention. Maybe I'm getting to the bottom of this mountain because I went to see my family, or I'm, going to have to let go of my arm so that I can get back to, my life, or whatever it is. But the very clear intention. And I think sometimes we forget how important that is to make our intention very clear. And when we have that clear intention, it seems like everything just kind of lines up to make that happen. But it has to be very clear and something that we really want. We can't say, oh, I want to lose weight, but not really want to, because we're pretty comfortable how we are. It just is important to know what you really want. And if you don't want to lose weight, that's fine. But just make sure that
if you want to be a survivor, then those are the tips. Okay, so then I also wanted to share some kind of holiday survival tips, because a lot of people say to me, oh my gosh, and they do have studies that show that we gain 5 to 10 pounds over the holidays. So I love not new at all, but it's a national campaign called 5210. And we teach this in the schools to the children, but it works for adults too. It's very simple. So if every day you wake up and you work on having 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day, less than 2 hours of screen time, and that's even during COVID isolation, you can turn off the TV, 1 hour of physical activity, preferably outside, if at all possible, and 0 sugar sweetened beverages. And I would add to that even artificially sweetened beverages. So any kind of sweetened beverages, that should be 0. So if you can shift your whole family, your whole family to the 5210 plan, sometimes that might be enough just to kickstart a whole new way of cooking and eating and living your life, which we need. We've got some problems out there, so we need to make some shifts, but we need to make it fun. We need to celebrate and do it together as a team. And I think that works so much better.
Yeah, and the more people that do it on an individual basis, the more it's culturally accepted and becomes the new norm, instead of, having parties around high sugar, high fat foods. Instead, maybe the parties are around getting together and enjoying nature or something like that. So a cultural shift there. So I like your advice to maybe use some concrete numbers. Sometimes that's helpful for some people, because we talked about trying to tune into your body, but for some people that they're just not quite in a place to do that yet. So having some numbers can be beneficial. Yeah.
And then I'd end with, we do have a class. I do want to give a little plug for Margaret Mary's Live Well Now class. So if these concepts you want to explore more, you need somebody to kind of guide you through this thinking, we do have a 10-week program that starts January 11th and 12th. We're going to do it both virtually and in person. And if you want more information about that, I don't need to say too much more, but if you want more information about that, you can call me at 812-933-5000, and I'd be happy to give you more information.
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, thanks for joining us, and thank you for all of your pearls of advice. I know you have learned so much in teaching for all of these years and have so much knowledge to share with all of us. So I appreciate your time and all of this information.
Okay, thanks so much, Amy.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.